Hey everybody, this is the Lamp. I'm here again after who knows how many months. I don't even know. I am very bad at I guess scheduling. My life's been pretty crazy recently. But anyway, today we are gonna talk about something that I recently talked to my wife about, which is kind of the difference between a I guess men's relationships and women's relationships, and possibly why there's so much strife in marriages when you don't really connect on what each other are doing. I know a lot of people probably have these same issues where the husband feels like the wife is like mothering them, and the wife feels like the husband just doesn't care or isn't inquisitive or isn't very like in tune with her, I guess you could say. And me and my wife were talking about this recently, and we kind of came to the conclusion that it seems like the difference between the two relationships is that women tend to value caring and love in their relationships more, and men tend to value respect and trust in their relationships more. So, a practical kind of example of this would be me and my wife were talking about how we should go about. There was a friend that basically we didn't agree with what they were doing, and we didn't agree with how they were living their life. And this friend was a man, and it was one of my friends. And so my wife was telling me that I should go talk to him. I should go tell him to to change certain things about his life. That this is an issue, that is an issue, and the way that he's living his life is bad. Um, and I told her that I've already talked to him about it, and so felt like I shouldn't bring it up again because then it would just be considered nagging. And so I guess to better understand the difference between the two is basically understanding where each one of us is coming from. And so, for the man's perspective, and to be fair, I am not every man, and I don't pretend to speak for every man. So maybe every man doesn't feel the same way that I do. I feel like this is generally how men think, but I am not every man. So if you're a woman watching this and don't just blatantly apply this to your husband or boyfriend because he might not think the same way that I do. I would say the best opportunity would be if you're a woman who's seeing a man, then show this video to your man and or explain what I say and say, is this the way you view it? And same thing for a man with a woman, show it to your wife or just tell her about it, and say, is this the way you view things? So, from her perspective, it seems like women tend to, and also another disclosure, I'm obviously not a woman. So, if I get things wrong in this description, please let me know. Me and my wife kind of agreed that this is probably how women think. This is definitely how she thinks, but just like me, she is not every woman. And so I know how I can figure out how my wife thinks by talking to her. I can't figure out how the women as an entire gender talk or think because I don't know all women. But she was saying that basically with women relationships, they tend to value care and love, which means I care for you too much to let you keep on living like this. I care for you. I love you too much to let you keep on making these bad decisions and keep on like messing up your life basically. I want the best for you. And so if I need to repeatedly tell you to change your life in order to get through to you so that you can have a better life, it is my responsibility to do that if I care about you and love you. And I mean, that is an admirable trait. And I think that if you explain that to any guy, they would say that is an admirable trait. But there is a difference in opinion, and at least maybe not a difference in opinion, but a difference in execution and thought process between the two genders. So that is generally how I feel like women view it. Like I said, I'm not a woman, so if I'm wrong, let me know because there's a very good chance that I am. But from a man's standpoint, men tend to, and this is from my own experience, which is men tend to value respect and trust in their relationships. And I feel like respect and trust are kind of interchangeable for a man. I feel like respect nowadays really isn't understood too well as a concept. I feel like everyone kind of has their own idea of what respect may be. And so, but generally, I feel like, at least in my own experience, I kind of relate respect and trust as one and the same. And so in my relationships, I won't ask a whole lot of questions. And if I've told somebody something once, like say, I don't know, say they're doing drugs, and, or maybe not as extreme as drugs, because I feel like that's something entirely different. Say, I can't even think of a good example now. Um, Okay, you probably saw that skip. It was because I was trying to think of something to put in this space. But I thought of one, and so it would be kind of like if you have a friend who sleeps in a lot. And like every single day, he's asleep till like 11 and or 1 or something. And it's like getting in the way of his work life and stuff like that. A lot of men, I feel like, if they even mention it once, would mention it once and be like, hey, you probably shouldn't do that. You're going to lose your job, stuff like that. But then we won't say it again. And in situations like that, I notice that my wife is like, why won't you say it again? Why won't, like, you should let him know that this is not going to be good and stuff like that. And the way that I feel like a lot of men view it is in our relationships, we trust and respect each other, or at least in any good relationship between men. And so when I trust you and I respect you, I trust you to be an adult enough to make your own decisions. And so, me telling you that I don't think how much you sleep in, I don't think you sleeping until you're late for work is a good decision. Like, that is me expressing my concern to him. And that is me, I guess you could say, being the loving kind of friend that they want me to be. However, respect then takes over and says, you are an adult and you know that there's an issue now. Or maybe you don't think that it's an issue. And either way, I trust you to make that decision and move forward from there. And I feel like in a lot of men's relationships, if you keep on bringing up stuff like that, like say the same thing. Like it's my best friend. He sleeps in a lot, and I've brought it up once, and nothing's changed. I bring it up again, nothing changes. I bring it up again, nothing changes. I bring it up again, nothing changes. That becomes more and more. Every single time I bring it up after the first time tends to relay the message of I don't trust you enough to make your own decisions. I don't think that you are enough of an adult to make your own decisions. So I'm going to make this decision for you and continue to mention it until you do change. Because obviously you can't control you can't make these decisions by yourself. And I know that that's not what women kind of mean when they want to say these things over and over again. I feel like for the most part, it comes from a place of love, which is I love you too much to let you mess up your life like this. Because if you sleep in too much and you're constantly late for work, yes, you will lose your job. But from a man's standpoint, it is I trust you enough that you're going to decide whether or not this is an issue for you. And maybe you don't care about that job. Maybe you would rather do something else. Maybe you have another plan. Or maybe this just needs to be a mistake that you learn from yourself. And I think that that's generally the difference in opinion. And I feel like that's a lot of where the women come off mothering because they're just being caring. And from a woman to woman standpoint, that wouldn't be mothering or pestering or nagging. That would just be, I care about you too much to let you keep on doing this thing that's bad. And where husbands come off uncaring and just kind of indifferent, it's not necessarily that we're uncaring or indifferent. It's more of trust and respect of you have your own life and I will let you know once. And if you decide that that's not an issue for you, then that's up to you. I also mentioned to her that honestly, in situations like that, at least for me, like it really depends on the situation of whether or not I continue to be in that person's life. I mean, because sleeping in is one thing, and like obviously that doesn't matter to me at least. But like, say they were addicted to drugs, or maybe not addicted to drugs because I feel like they would need support in that case, but maybe they were, I don't know. It's a person who constantly complains about their wife, and they're like every little thing that she does, he gets pissed off about. And I tell him, hey, look, like these probably aren't the biggest issues. And after once of telling him, he still seems to be constantly complaining about every little thing that she does. Like, oh, I got home and she was watching TV, and it's like, well, why shouldn't she watch TV? Like stuff like that. Which I feel like most men wouldn't complain about, but that's the whole point of this analogy is that it's things that are small. And so at that point, it would be up to me to decide whether or not this is a deal breaker for our relationship. And so in that case, I would evaluate myself. Can I continue to deal with this guy's complaining even though I've told him, like, I don't think you should be treating your wife that way? And um, and I just need to decide whether or not he is the kind of person that I want to keep in my life. Um, so, with that said, in those kinds of situations, I feel like the men tend to evaluate it on a case to case basis and determine what is a non negotiable for them. Me personally, if it becomes a non negotiable, such as that, because I feel like that is kind of a non negotiable for me, like I don't mind people complaining about their wives or husbands. I feel like that's a natural part of marriage. I mean, you're going to do things that the other person doesn't like, and sometimes you want to talk about those things. And I feel like that's normal. This is more for a like extreme circumstance where you almost seem like you don't care about your wife. Like there's nothing good about her, she's always terrible kind of thing. Um and so in that case, I would need to evaluate whether or not I want them in my life, and if it becomes a non-negotiable, I would tell them, "Hey, look, like I mentioned that this is an issue that you should probably address. And I mean, it seems like you don't consider it an issue because I don't feel like you've changed. And so that's fine for your life. But if you continue to do this, I'm like, we're not going to be friends anymore because I don't agree with this, and I don't want this kind of these things that you're bringing into my life in my life." And so, from a man's standpoint, I feel like that's probably the best way to go about it. At least that's the way I go about it. So that's probably why I feel it's the best, because it's my way. And don't we all feel like our own way is the best? But I would like to end this off with a short scripture that kind of underlines the woman's standpoint in a relationship and the man's standpoint in a relationship, which is Ephesians 5:22 through 33, I believe it is. And I'm be paraphrasing because, as you probably noticed from the description of where it is, it's like 11 verses, so it's pretty long. And there's a lot more that it says than this. So I gave you the reference in case you wanted to look it up yourself. But basically, it says that women should submit to their husbands, at least in the New International Version is what I was reading off of. Women should submit to their husbands, and in a lot of translations, it actually says respect their husbands. But I feel like submit is a better word because it more accurately gets across the idea of what it's saying, which is women should trust their husbands and basically like show them that respect in the trust of submitting to what their husband says or does and stuff like that, and not constantly question him. I don't think that there's anything wrong with questioning your husband every now and then, but it's kind of like if I decided that we're going to get a certain type of insurance and you ask me, why do you want to get that kind of insurance? And I explain it to you, and then the next day you bring it up and you're like, I don't think that's the right kind of insurance. And I say, trust me. And then the next day you bring it up, and the next day you bring it up. That's not submission. But if you just ask once, I explain it, you say, I don't know if that's the best course of action, and I say, trust me, then not bringing it up again after that would be submission. And to be fair, this is only possible if the men adhere to the next part of the verse, which is men, love your wives as Christ loved the church. And what Christ did for the church, which a lot of people, I feel like, and I did as well when I first read this verse, think about like the actual, like the building the church, or back then the Pharisees and the actual synagogue, which is, what did he do for them? He broke down their tables and basically completely upended the way that they did most of their stuff, and kind of changed a lot of things back to the way that it was. And that is not the kind of church that he's talking about. He's talking about the people, the church, which what he did for them is he sacrificed his life for them. He took out the time to teach them. He took out the time to love them. He never was too busy for them. And he constantly made time to be there for them. And that is the kind of love that a husband should have for his wife, which is she is always first and she is always the top of that priority. Obviously, God goes above that, but at least from personal standpoint, yes, she should be the first, not your kids, not your family. Your wife should always be your first priority, and even before your job. I mean, there has been plenty of times where I've been called into work, or they wanted me to go into work, and I've told them no because my wife had asked me to do something, or I had something planned where I was going to be spending time with my wife, or something that we had already planned and something that she was looking forward to. And they said, hey, we need you to come in. And I've told them no, because she comes first, even before my job. I don't think you should do this to the detriment of your employment, like just constantly telling them, I don't care about this job. But you should make it clear that family comes first. And so the only way that your wife can submit to you, as far as the husbands go, is if you are loving her like Christ loved the church. Because in all reality, I feel like a lot of men read the first part of that verse without reading the second. And I mean, to be fair, there's probably a lot of women who read the second part of that verse without reading the first. And so this only works if it's both ways, which is the husband has to be trustworthy. She has to know that you're going to put her first, and that she is the kind of the most important thing in your life, and that you always do things that are going to benefit her. You always have her best interest in heart. And that is the only way she's going to be able to trust you, because if you're constantly doing things that are for your own benefit and not considering her, then why should she trust you? She should still trust you because it's in the Bible, but you yourself are not earning that trust. And so you yourself cannot claim that trust. That's more of between her and God than something that she owes you. Because everything in the Bible is done because of our devotion to God, not our devotion to each other. So, that being said, the husband should also love the wife and always put her first so that he can be trustworthy. The wife should always submit to the husband, understanding that even if you don't understand why he's doing what he's doing, you can question it, but don't pester him and trust him that he is keeping your best interest in heart. And as husbands, we need to make sure that we always have our family's best interest in heart and not just thinking of ourselves constantly. And I know that that's not an easy thing to do. It's way easier to say than to do. And I know that from experience because I try to live that out. And it's not always easy. I mean, there's plenty of times that I've wanted to go to a specific job. Me and my wife have talked about it, and we collectively decided that it's not the best decision. And to be clear, being the head of the household doesn't mean that you don't talk to your wife. She's part of the household as well. And being the head of the household is like being the manager. And I'm sure we've all had those bad managers that don't care about their employees and they'll just tell you, do it. And that's the end of it. And so if you want to be a good manager of your household as the head of the household, you have to talk to your employees, your wife, your kids. You have to care about them. You have to care about what's best for them. And a good manager always puts them first. And this is more of my own opinion, but I would never ask my family to do anything I am not willing to do or capable of doing. And so I would never ask my wife to change the baby's diaper if not I'm not willing to change the baby's diaper. I would never ask my wife to shower the baby or bathe the baby without being willing and capable of doing it myself. Because I think any good, and I'm just using manager as a kind of fill in, but this is specifically referring to the head of the house, which is I should be capable of doing everything in the house. I should be capable of cleaning. I should be capable of cooking. I should be capable of taking care of the kids, of helping them with their homework. I should be capable of everything around the house. And the reason that she's doing it is because she's home. But it's not because I'm not willing to do it. And when able, I should be helping as well. And that's another thing. And to be fair, these are both personal for me. But I don't believe I should ever ask my wife to do more than I do. And so, like, yes, I go out and I work. But then when I come home, I'm helping with the kids. If it's early enough, I make dinner. I make dinner for the kids. I help shower them, or I do shower them. I help with the baby. I will feed the baby and stuff like that. And I'll even do the dishes if I have time. Because I don't think I should ever ask my wife to do more than I do, because I think I should lead with example. As head of the house, I feel like as long as I have the ability and energy, I should be helping around the house and making her life easier. Because that is part of putting her first. Is honestly, unless like I'm sick, there's really no excuse for me to not be helping. There's no excuse for me to come home and just sit on the couch watching TV for hours on end while she's dealing with the kids all by herself. And so I hope that that spreads, especially in Christian husbands, because I feel like that is what Christ did. He was always doing more than the disciples were. And he was always teaching more. He was always reaching out to more people. He was always doing more sermons. He did more miracles. He led by example, and I feel like we should do the same thing. Especially if we are called to love like Christ loved the church. If you ever have doubts about that, read all of the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and just look at how Christ treated his disciples. And that is how you should treat your wife. Anyway, um, yeah, that should be it. Anyway, have a great day. I hope this helped. God bless, and have a great day again.